Thanks so much, Mark, and good afternoon or good morning or good evening, depending on where you're based right now. Um, my first question I want to ask everybody to bring us all together is are we here? Are we here? We're here, we're sitting, but are we really here? And today the theme of the teaching that I want to give over is everything to do with presence, right? We came to breathe together, to meditate together, to come together in this way. And it doesn't come easily. So before we start the teaching, I want to invite everybody to get comfortable, to roll our shoulders back, set the stage for this moment for the next 30 minutes. Let's just take one breath in together to arrive here, to arrive in our bodies. Let's take a breath in together. And let's exhale it together. So I'm currently in Brazil, and I just finished a yoga teacher training. And one of the things that they taught us in the course is one sentence that stuck with me, especially in relation to Passover, which is yoga is not about touching your toes, but it's about what you learn on the way down. When I heard this sentence and I started thinking about all the ways it permeates into life, all the ways it permeates into where we are now, into the season, into the holidays, into the month, into the season of freedom and festivals, I understood how much it's relevant for what we're going through right now. And so I started thinking of the four things that are happening core in my life at this moment. And I think many of our lives, right? We have Passover, we have counting of the Omer, which began this week. We're here to practice meditation and mindfulness together. And the biggest umbrella, which is waiting for this war to end, waiting for the hostages to come home. And so when we put on the glasses of waiting and non-presence, we have Passover, which is the word itself, Passover. And where does Passover come from? It comes from the night that we were waiting for Hashem to pass over our house, for us to be spared from this last plague. That was the firstborn of the Egyptian sons being killed in Egypt. And this night that we had to pass through to be passed over, waiting in the darkness, staying at home, being stuck inside our house, waiting for freedom to come. Then we have counting the Omer, which is also a form of waiting, right? We're counting, we're waiting, we're counting each day as it passes, waiting till we arrive to Shavuot, waiting till we receive the Torah. We have meditation, which is waiting to receive that bliss, waiting to receive the quiet, waiting to receive the relaxation in our minds. And also maybe waiting for the session to end sometimes, checking our clock, have 5-minute pass, have 10-minute pass, waiting for it to finish. And the last one we have, which is waiting for the war to end, for hostages to come home, waiting for all this suffering to pass. But when you switch the lens and we switch to the lens of presence and we switch to the lens of awareness, everything else comes after that, right? So take those four things and put presence in them. When we look at with presence at the waiting of Pesach, of Passover, we see this magical night that happened amongst the Jewish people as they were still enslaved in Egypt, waiting in presence, doing a Seder throughout that night, waiting in faith that in the morning we're going to be free. And it kind of reminded me of when there was still blackouts when I was growing up. We'd have a blackout and all night we'd wait. And my dad would come and light the candles and we'd sit on the floor and we were just waiting. We didn't know when it would come on, the power, but we knew the power would come on. But the presence we had, instead of waiting and being frustrated, we're cold, we're upset, oh, wow, it's my phone can't charge. We just enjoyed in the moment that it was happening. And I didn't even want it to end. So I had this imagination of the Jews when they were in Egypt doing Seder on that night of Passover. Then you have staying present when we're talking about counting the Omer, which is instead of waiting to get to that, spiritual refinement or to get to that place of I've refined all my qualities and now I'm ready to receive the Torah. What if I see every single day excitement for whatever it is, characteristic or sphira or quality that I'm working on just today? It becomes so much easier to refine that specific thing for today, this week's, right, that we're talking about. Loving kindness, chesed. Every day you can bring chesed. we talk about mindfulness. What happens when we stay present in mindfulness? Suddenly, we just maybe focus on the breath or focus on the black underneath our eyes, and worlds open if we just focus now. And the last one with the war, right? If we, instead of waiting for when will this end, we stay in faith like the Jewish people did in Egypt when they were waiting all night. And notice the way that we have become so interconnected as a global community of Jewish people that we've never felt, at least I haven't felt, and my parents say they've never felt, that our heart is almost beating together. Putting aside politics, putting aside disagreements of this kind, we can all feel this heart that is hurting together and healing together, and this thing we're all praying for. And so when we take this moment and we take this opportunity to switch from waiting and expectation to observation, suddenly everything becomes magical, everything becomes mystical, everything becomes alive. And all of the other things we're working on, which might be patience, it might be success, it might be focus, right? We're not using meditation for something. Meditation is the thing from which everything else comes. And so shifting our way of thinking from this Western, we need to have it provide something for us or do something for us. We're just observing with whatever comes up, with no goals, no results, no anything coming in, no expectation. And when there's no expectation, suddenly the miracle can happen. And to have no expectation, we need a lot of faith. So this week's Omer, this week's Sphira that we're focusing on is Hesed, which is loving kindness. And I thought about this week of why is this the first one of the seven? Why is love and loving kindness the first one of the seven? Because only with love, only when we're acting and breathing from a state of love, all the other things come, strength and discipline and awareness, all of those things come once we have the love inside, to have patience and faith that these things will come. The Torah will come, freedom will come, the war will end, peace will come. And so I want to bless us all for this meditation, that we keep this in our mind. And practically, as we breathe together, as we go into this section of the meditation, that we just keep in mind what happens when we stop waiting and we start watching. Whether it's something practical you can take with you for the rest of your day, if you're waiting for a phone call, or you're waiting for the bus, or you're waiting for a subway, or you're waiting for your partner to come home, or you're waiting for the water to boil, whatever it may be, in that moment of waiting, seeing it instead of waiting for something as an opportunity to practice. And the practicing that we're doing is mindfulness and meditation and breathing. So I offer and ask and invite us all just one time to do the avodah for the rest of the day, and maybe continue every day this as a little practice. Stop the waiting and start the watching. And miracles really, really start to bloom once this happens. And the last thing that I'll say before we go into meditation is everything in Judaism is always tied to the season. And I love this. Anyone who's ever sat with me here knows I like the nature part. And right now we're in this moment of spring, right? We're getting to that. We're getting to the end of it. And we're like a seed right underneath the surface of the earth. It's there, it's ready, it's blossoming, it's fallen apart, it's come back together, and its sprouts are ready to break through the surface. But to break through the surface takes a lot of strength. To blossom this little seed under the surface is one thing, but to break through to the top, that's when you need that last final push. So keeping that within us, this transformation from spring to summer, from almost blooming to blossoming. When we're in the meditation and you feel that struggle, maybe you feel your mind coming and bothering you, envision yourself as that seed right before it's breaking through the surface. And the breaking through is going to come naturally. So with that, let's all get ready to meditate, to breathe, to concentrate. Getting comfortable. Feeling our tuchas on the seat. Placing each foot down one by one, placing your right foot on the ground. And placing your left foot on the ground. Placing our hands in a position on our legs, palms facing up if we want to receive, or palms facing down on our legs if we want to ground down into our body today. Taking a deep breath in. Let's keep our breaths through our nose today completely. Our inhale and our exhale, breathing in through our nose. And exhaling through our nose, feeling the air passing over your lips. Breathing in. And breathing out. Fall deeper into our bodies. I invite you to take one of your fingers, your pointer finger on each side of your ear, and place your fingers gently inside your ear, just to try something with your eyes closed. With your fingers in your ear, just take a couple breaths and hear your system. Hear the breath passing through you, covering both our ears, breathing in and breathing out, hearing the breath moving through us. Breathing in and letting it go. Can continue like this or place your hands back down, whatever connects you to this practice. Coming into our body with our eyes closed, breathing in, feeling the breath coming in through our toes. Breath coming up through our thighs, our calves, our knees. Your next breath, breathe in through your hips. Feel the breath inside your stomach. Feel the breath inside your ribs, your diaphragm, your chest. Our next breath in, our shoulders away from our ears, feeling the breath filling our throat. Coming into our face, feeling the breath in our mouth, in our nose, in our ears. And letting the breath come through, passing up into our eyes, our forehead, our pineal gland, to the top of our head, to the crown of our head. Next breath in, take one deep breath and see it moving through your whole body, breathing in. And exhaling, breathing it out. As we continue our breath, let's imagine ourselves inside one cozy space, one cozy room. Whatever container makes you feel safe. Noticing the smells inside this container. Maybe it's earth, maybe it's the sea. Maybe it's something freshly cooked from your family member that you love. Our eyes closed, we breathe in, we imagine the lighting of this room. Is it a candle? Or maybe total darkness? So we begin building this room, this safety little enclave. Imagine the temperature. Maybe it's a little bit chilly, or maybe the sun is facing down on you, warming your whole entire being. Enjoying this moment, this container, this space. Breathing in, focusing on your breath, on your forehead, breathing it in. And letting it go. As we spend the next few minutes in silence, just enjoy being in this place. As you breathe in, imagining your breath giving life to the entire world, breathing it in. Whenever your mind has wandered, coming back to the breath, to our body. Inviting in chesed, inviting in this loving kindness to fill every cell. With each breath, seeing your body rejuvenating. One more petal for your flower that's about to blossom, coming into form. Imagining yourself coming out of dormancy. Bulbs beginning to break open with the sun. Unclenching any muscles of our face, of our mouth, of our jaw, making sure we're not holding any tension. Releasing our eyebrows, wiggling them. And beginning to focus on just one word. Just one word, which is illumination. Breathing in illumination to your being, breathing in light to fill every part of you. Feeling this illumination, bringing new life. Cleansing out any darkness that's grown or manifested inside of you. And remembering that even the tiniest spark of light and illumination has the power to transform an entire room. No matter how dark it may feel, just one breath of light can change everything. Taking a few deep breaths in through our nose, letting our spine straighten, rolling our neck in a few circles, switching directions. Maybe raising our hands above our head if we feel like giving some energy. And releasing our hands down. Bringing our palms together, rubbing them to bring some heat. And covering our eyes with these little caves of warmth. And massage our face, our forehead, and our eyes, letting the blood flow. Our jaw. Remembering that our face is also one big muscle. Giving some love, some attention. And when we're ready, taking one deep last breath in, noticing how we're feeling right now. And with love and compassion, saying a prayer to bring this feeling with us throughout the day. Thank you so much. Chag Sameach. Thank you, IJS. Thank you, Mark. I love IJS so much.
Thank you so much, Kat. Thanks so much. Beautiful practice. And friends, let's seal it as we do each day. If you're in mourning, or if you're doing your outside, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, welcome to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we ask you please stay present for those who are, to offer your compassion and support. And thanks to Harry Gilboa, who's holding our text space, for sharing the words of the Kaddish on the screen. And you can put the name or names of those you are honoring today in the chat now or after you recite Kaddish. And if you're joining me, please rise in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yama Dibrach Yute, Yamlich Malchute. B'chayechon Yerichon B'chayei Beit Yisrael Ba'agala Zman Karev.
Amen.
Amen.
Teshmei Rabbah Barach 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 B'Pa'ar B'Tamam Aseh Hadar Yitaler Yitalal Shemei T'Kosha Eila Kol Birchat Avishirata Tushbachat Avinechamot Amiran Ba'alma B'Yimru Ish Lama Rabba Min Shamaya B'Chaim Alu O Yisrael
Shalom.
Aseh Shalom B'Olam Aseh Shalom B'Alinu Yisrael Yafo Yoshvei Tel Yimru. Amen.
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 Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. If you're leaving us now, hope you'll join us tomorrow. We'll be sitting into Shabbat with Rabbi Brian Yosef Shacker Brooks, chanting into Shabbat together. Looking forward to that. Of course, you are encouraged, welcome to stay with us. Let's continue to sit with that beautiful practice of not waiting, but watching, or join us for conversation with Kat about today's teaching and practice. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please, as always, put it in the chat. And sorry, you can preface it by writing question all in caps. I'll keep an eye out for your questions, try to work it into the conversation best I can. But also just feel free to share whatever reflections you'd like. And thanks to Harry for putting Kat's contact information, the email and WhatsApp number, and the link to Kat's website. We'll talk in a minute about some of what you're offering these days, Kat, or what's coming up. But I want to start with that practice. I really appreciated that. And I felt like it gave me a new, so a little bit of some fresh vocabulary for Jewish mindfulness. And I got that from the distinction between waiting and, I mean, I think you described it as presence, and I was thinking about watching. I was thinking the Hebrew word shmirah, of sometimes translated as guarding, but it means watching, and connecting it with Passover. In the Torah, the night of the Passover is described as a leil shimurim, a night of watching or guarding. I'm thinking about, that what that night was like, was really appreciated, your family story about that too. And the distinction between, when is this going to be over and when's that going to happen, and thinking ahead and feeling that kind of weight of impatience and being able to be with that, versus being present in the moment, which is not the same as avoiding the future, not thinking about the future, not acting about the future, but it's about what happens between now and that future. And watching has this kind of active connotation. So I wondered what you thought about that. that one thing like, well, don't think about the future, just be in the here and now, be in the present. And it felt like it added a little bit to that, that watching is, yes, be in the here and now. And I'm watching, and I'm watching, I'm present in the here and now because I'm seeing what I can do in this moment. Or I'm just in this moment but I'm aware of what's happening so that when I stop sitting, I can get out and respond to it. I was wondering what you thought about that distinction. I thought, well, another way of describing Jewish mindfulness could be, present, watching presence, being in a state of watching presence. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, amazing question, and I love hearing about the Shmira. I think there's two things that came to my mind. One is the first is when you said the word. Well, I'll say the first thing. The first thing is when I asked everybody or offered everybody to put their hands in the ears to hear the breath. It's like when we can hear the breath, we can smell the breath, we can taste the breath, we can sense the breath. And I had a recent moment where I learned this practice of closing the ears. And I had been practicing meditation for many days in silence. And then one morning I put it like this. And I realized that silence is often not really silence. And that when you go like this, you have silence on one level and you take it out and you notice even in a quiet room, how many distractions and how much is going on. Even when you're sitting alone in a room, there's always so much distraction. And when you say this word Shmira, for me, living in Israel, the word Shmira, I think of the army because when you watch the base overnight, you do like shifts of Shmira. You watch the base. And something that came up in conversation over the past year or two is many friends who have served in the IDF and they have to sit overnight from 3 to 5 a.m., from 3 to 7 a.m. on the borders, watching over Lebanon, watching over whatever it may be. No phones, you're not allowed to have a phone. You sit in Shmira. And it's exactly what you're talking about, which is, are you waiting for, this guarding to end at the end of, are you waiting to just get back to sleep? Or are you present doing your job to be aware of everything going around you? Because that's really why you're doing Shmira. And watching, something I've been learning in this yoga teacher training, but in general, is like, how can we get the mind actually into a state of just like nothingness? And that's so contrary to everything I've been taught, even in spirituality, is it's a different way of thinking that instead of acquiring more and learning more and sensing everything going on around you, actually just watching and not interpreting what you're watching. You're just watching, like you just receive, and there's nothing, it's not connecting to somewhere else of, is this good or is this bad? Is this beautiful or is this ugly? Is this peaceful? Is this correct? You're just observing. And so I think, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
I don't want to, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's just interesting to consider that in relation to what you were describing. I was thinking about that description of having Shmirah duty of, watching, where in fact you are interpreting what's happening, right? I imagine, it's not just like watching for the sake of watching, it's watching for the sake of action if necessary in the moment. So it's kind of a nuanced distinction. And it may be that they both serve they both serve purposes of different kinds. But I think that that Shmirah metaphor kind of really, for me at least, is really speaks to this moment. Michael and a few other in the chat are, raising the question about in this moral moment, how is it possible or advisable to put politics aside or, to, sometimes people say, like, well, how can you just sit while things are happening like that? So much action is needed right now. And I think that the Shmirah, that you're describing, being on the border and watching and needing to be really focused on what's happening doesn't mean actually doing anything in the moment other than being watchful. And that feels to me that to think, oh yeah, that actually works very well for me right now. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. I just want to, like, I see some questions, but I just want to go off of what you said because it resonates. And especially with this question of politics, how do you stand in indifference? Right? Like I recently heard a teaching, cultivate compassion to the good and indifference to the wicked. And I heard that and I did not like that. Like, how can I be indifference to the wicked? Then I started thinking of what am I actually doing in a concrete action way? If wickedness is offending me or politics is hurting me, what am I actually doing to help remedy and mediate the bad? Because sitting at a table to discuss, for me, it's only hurting my being more and more and darkening more. And so that's why I bring in this piece of the light at the end, because darkness doesn't exist, right? Darkness, all darkness is absence of light. Light is not the absence of darkness. Light is light. It's active. It's happening. And darkness is passive. It just doesn't have light in it. And the minute you put even a little bit of light into darkness, boom, illumination. And for me, with this Passover thing and this idea of freedom, and what is freedom? It's saving our energy. It's saving our battery that we can shine as brighter lights inside and then without. Because the minute you do that, and instead of having a conflict, political or whatever it may be, is that taking action? Not really. Maybe there's something concrete, some action, something you can be doing, but how can we get past talking into the sphere of talking, into if action is calling you into a sphere of doing? And if you're not doing action, saving the words and making them full of light and making them full of peace, because we need to save our energy or we don't have any energy. We come here to restore the energy to go further. So yeah, I think protection, shmira, protecting ourselves first, shmira for ourselves too.
Lori brought in another, a usage of shmira in Jewish tradition also, which is the shmira of accompanying the deceased, a dead body before burial, right? Between death and burial, that there's something called shmira where somebody stays present with the body, which was literally, I think, to guard it from being stolen, but it's also being it's kind of a statement of being present for. So Lori this is interesting, raised the interesting question of empathy or connection, I guess, in Shmirah, whether guards in times of war, whether being present, observing our own lives, or watching over dead bodies. So I think that brings in, whether it's empathy or chesed here, let's, since we're in the week of chesed, maybe we can use that. Watching with chesed in this week for ourselves, for others, for whatever we are responsible for, and being mindful of the chesed that's necessary for that, right? You could do shmirah for a dead, for a deceased body and just say, like, I can't wait till my shift is over. But you also could feel this sense of connection to the person, right? That you're really accompanying the person in some way. So that's I think, very beautiful observation, Lori. Thank you for that. Just want to make sure we have a little bit of time, Kat, for you to talk a little bit about, what you're doing when you're going back to Israel in May, and what's for those either who are in Israel or maybe in Israel or have family or friends who are going to be there that it might relate to.
Thank you. And I just want to answer one question in the chat because it's about the breath of the nostrils. So it's something to do with temperature regulation of your body. And so when we breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, we are heating our body. And sometimes when we heat our body starts moving a little bit faster. And so when you just breathe through the nose, you're keeping a certain regulated temperature of your system, and it allows you to have a little bit of a gentler and deeper practice because your body isn't shifting in its inner temperature. So that was the nostril thing. Regarding what I'm doing, so a few years ago, I founded something called Mindfulness with IL in the middle in Israel. And it came from this concept of, I worked as a tour guide and a trip educator and hosting always Birthright and Onward and all these programs. And then when the war started, I started hosting volunteer groups of Americans coming to Israel, to volunteer. So last year I guided 16 trips. And everybody comes, and I met the most amazing people. I was in awe of everybody that I met who came to Israel during this time, but I realized there's something missing, which is a place to breathe and relax and detach a little bit from what it feels like to be in Israel. So I founded Mindfulness, which is an initiative, and I facilitate workshops and trainings and all different kinds of things. A lot of time for young people in this age group of like 18 to 30. But also for the more adult group age volunteers. And so all throughout the summer, and the summer again, starting in May, I facilitate workshops across the country, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, breath work, of yoga. And I always say it's geared to people who feel that these things are not for them. It's the people I'm interested most in reaching are the ones who are like, no, I don't do meditation. My mind is too busy. It can't work for me. So starting in the first week of May, I'm headed back. There's a bunch of workshops planned. And I just mentioned to Mark that if anybody has family or friends who live there or are going there, to feel free to reach out to me on WhatsApp or Instagram or email, and I can share the schedule of what the workshops are. You're on mute.
I was going to say, that's wonderful, and wish you really a lot of success with that, Kat. And I want to thank you for this beautiful practice today. It was really just, I think, perfect for this week of Chol Hamoed Pesach. And we hope to see everyone tomorrow to practice with Brian Yosef Shacker Brooks. And want to wish, we're not going to see you, want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom, Nechag Sameach for the closing days of Pesach. And we will be here all next week, by the way, Monday through Friday, as well, our regular schedule. So thanks to you, Kat. Thanks to Harry.
Thank you so much.
Everyone for being here. Okay, everyone.
Thank you.
Moedim
Thank you.
L'Simcha. Many blessings.